203-7833 or 203-946-8582. Public comment testimony may be also submitted.
Oh, no.
Can you hear me?
Oh, first one is, yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'd like to introduce the Vice Chair, Alder Joaquin, Alder Steve Winter, Alder Jose. And sorry for getting frozen. Alder Rodriguez. And Alder. Your internet connection. I'd like to introduce tonight who our guest speakers will be, if they'd like to state their name and their address, please. One moment.
Good evening, Keisha Red Hannons, Assistant Superintendent of 54 Meadow Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
It says hit start video, I don't know why.
This is Michelle Bonanno. I'm the Magnet School Coordinator in New Haven. I live at 245 Green Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Can you like to introduce the group tonight? If you'd like to state your name and your address, please.
All right, Dr. White.
Oh, yes. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Paul White, Assistant Superintendent, 170 Osborne Avenue, New Haven.
This is Marquel Middleton, Director of School Choice, 780 Seaview Avenue, Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Tiffany. Tiffany, you have to take yourself off mute so everyone can hear. Maybe she stepped away. Is Dr. Tracy on? Not sure.
We're
who the host
waiting
is.
for Dr.
I'll see if she received the link. I know she was having some internet trouble earlier.
All right. Okay, Alder
Tracy.
Ortiz, we can. We can proceed, Alder Ortiz.
Okay, great. Would you like to state your name and address for the record, please? I was frozen. I must have missed it.
Madam Chair, they all stated their name and addresses for the record.
Thank you so much. I did not hear. Okay, if you'd like to begin your presentation, thank you.
Excuse me, Dr. Tracy is on the phone. Perfect. There we go.
There she is.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Doc.
I'm here, Eileen Tracy, Superintendent, New Haven Public Schools, 54 Meadow Street. Did everyone hear me?
Yes, we did.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Markwell.
Yes, is it possible to share my screen? We developed a quick PowerPoint to sort of frame some of the processes. I don't know if that's possible. If not, I can just speak from it.
It is possible. The chair is getting situated at a different screen. We'll have staff share the screen shortly.
You can proceed with the presentation.
Madam Chair, they actually need the screen share option to happen through Mr. Middleton.
Thank you.
You can share.
He's able to share now. Can't hear.
Is everyone able to see the screen?
Yes,
Okay, I'm going to proceed.
thank you.
So just to outline the process, the annual process for New Haven Public Schools, our school choice process. Here is a timeline we use and adhere to for 2020. On February 1st, we had our School Choice Expo, which is the opportunity where families and interested persons from out of district as well can come and learn firsthand from principals and staff about schools that may interest them. New Haven has 16 inter-district magnet schools. And then our application actually opened on February 1st and closed on March 2nd. So that is our application window. We initially published and had hoped to release all the initial results on March 31st. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit, so we were forced to adjust accordingly. So we did push our the release of the results back just 2 weeks to April 14th, and we're able to work to meet that deadline accordingly. Also, being sensitive to the pandemic and families, we wanted to ensure that parents had enough time to respond accordingly. Typically, it is 2 weeks they are given to accept or decline and say they will, accept the seat offer. We wanted to be mindful that this was uncertain times for everyone and give them an extended opportunity. So we did publish that as May 15th. And that's our adjusted release date. When we talk about how student placements are determined, we did try to express to parents and the public this year, really provide as much information as we could as possible to help parents and families and the general public understand the district's placement process. So all students applying through the choice process are considered for the school and grade level that they indicate on their application. And to ensure the school choice process is equitable, each applying student is considered for placement at every single school they put on their application. A student's academic grades or past are not taken into consideration on the application. And if a student is not initially placed at one of their choices, they are still considered for the other choices in sequential order. For this reason, we expressed to parents this year to place all schools that interested them, like truly interested them. And we extended that number of selections from 4 to 6, because based on previous year's results, we were told and saw in the data on a post-application survey that parents filled out the 4 choices and still wanted additional choices. So we went to 6 this past year. Understanding the placement process, how does it work? Everything is governed, I guess you can say, by a computer-based algorithm that we are programming in with a third-party vendor. In a nutshell, this is what happens. All applicants are temporarily assigned to their most preferred school. So their first choice school, the first school they're listing. And then at each school, temporary applicants are sorted by their priorities at that specific school. So whether the child has neighborhood preference or sibling preference, they're resorted based on priorities, our priority structures. And then if there's a tie, essentially the computer and algorithm is breaking the tie with a lottery number. We found this to be very equitable the past 2 years. At each school, seats are now filled until the no seats remain. For students who are not awarded or offered a seat at any of their listed choices, they're waitlisted. So just as in past years, the only students that are waitlisted are those students who were not matched to any of their choices. And once a student is matched to one of their choices on the application, they're no longer considered at the other choices. This year in a post-application survey, we did ask respondents and parents and families how they felt or how satisfied they were around the school choice process. We had 49% of our respondents say they were extremely satisfied. Another 33% or 488 participants, unique participants, say they were somewhat satisfied. So we are trending in the right direction. And a total of 32 or 2% stated they were extremely dissatisfied. So we've got some work to do in addressing their concerns as well. And then just 3% or 44 additional persons said that they were somewhat dissatisfied. So there's always room for improvement, but I think overall we are trending in the right direction for sure. When we talk about communication with families, we made that a big push this year and certainly had to adjust on a whim once the pandemic hit and schools in the district closed. So we really stressed communication as much as we could. Staff were home as the district was shut down, so we were able to get everyone set up remotely and field as many calls and emails as possible. Parents who were offered a seat via the choice process had until May 15th in the initial round to accept or decline their child's seat offer. Normally the registration process is in person. So after the lottery is run, we have a huge influx of persons and families running into the office to register and accept their child's seat. We had to really adjust and sort of move along with the time. So what we had to do is take our entire student registration process online for entering students. So this is something new for the district for sure. We're getting good feedback and we're doing all we can to assure that we are meeting the needs of the families, providing technical support. And one thing I'm really proud that we have done on our website, we developed an online registration guide. So to walk parents through how to register their child. Essentially, they need to upload those critical documents to say, yes, I'm accepting the seat. That's one thing, but also I do plan to come. So if they've never been to our schools, they do have to upload their birth certificate, identification, and proof of residency in New Haven, which is hugely important. And we do have that guide now available in English, Spanish, Arabic, Pashto, and Chinese on our website. We're still getting calls from parents. I'm helping them as well. And then just to summarize the results of our process, there were approximately 7,200 unique applications submitted this year, and we had a roughly a 57% all applicants were matched on day one of the lottery. So that's April 14th. We were successfully matched about 57% of all applicants. And with people declining seats and moving up the wait list, our overall placement percentage later on we'll be able to provide that should be significantly higher Additional waitlisted students are actively being placed in schools of their choice through October 1st, pending seat availability. And we take into consideration building capacity as well as teacher contracts regarding class size. We cannot exceed that, or it becomes a contractual matter. And one thing the Board of Education did do and request that we do this year is increase the number of seats for New Haven students in those 16 interdistrict magnet schools. So at the entry grades, what we did is we increased the seats. So we took our schools to the max. So if Hill Regional Career, I'm sorry, can hold about 180 students in ninth grade, we pushed the limit. We said we're going to fill all 180 seats to really advocate for our New Haven students and fulfill the board's requirements. So that pretty much sums up our process. We do as well have, if you're interested in looking, I can share it on my screen. It is basically the placements by school. So we can also show, if interested, or send over the number of seats that were offered at each of the schools. And where it's an interdistrict, we have the breakdown that was shared with the Board of Education, showing the number of seats that were offered to New Haven and suburban students as well. But that is our presentation, very brief on our overall process.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Any questions from the committee? I have a question. Can you explain to me when the process is completed and say they've had the 6 choices, however, the parent would like to hold her spot for her first choice. Say she scored very high on getting into the seats of her 3rd and 4th choices, but she really wants her first choice. If she declines her responding, does she lose her seat in any of those spots because she refused to accept any of the other ones because she's waiting for her first choice?
Great question. So a student is only offered a seat at one of their choices. So that is why we tell parents through videos and communication to only select schools that truly interest them and that they would be comfortable sending their child to, because their child could be placed at any of their choices. So for some parents, it may just be that one school that they want their child to go to, and that's okay. And if their child is not placed there, they'll land on the wait list. But if you do, for say, give us 4 choices, you're essentially saying, or should be saying, these are 4 schools that I would love my child to go to. So your child may not have been placed at your first choice for various reasons. Maybe that's not your attendance zone, or there were no seats available, but we were able to successfully match you to your 3rd or 4th choice. That is the seat offered, and the child is not considered at any of the other choices. So it's a single offer system.
Okay. So if that family member wants to wait, so say they're waiting for they were encouraged to sign up for 6 spots this year, correct?
They were able to select up to 6 spots. They were encouraged only to select schools that are true interest to them.
Okay. If that parent wanted to wait and didn't select, say they're number 5 on the list, and they really want to go, I'll say, for example, co-op, and they wait, is there a date that they can wait before they accept that? Like past July 1st?
I don't think I'm understanding the question. If co-op is the child's first choice, and let's say Metropolitan was the child's 3rd choice, and the system, or we offered the child a seat at Metropolitan, the child is not being considered any further for co-op. So that is not an option for them to attend that school.
Okay, that's what I mean. I was just wondering if their first choice, they were close on the list to getting in, and they wanted to wait to see if their number would go down. Could that family member wait past July 1st?
So, Marquel, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Michelle, jump in.
Sure. So the deadlines for accepting seats are not flexible. So if you get placed at a school and the deadline, so the original deadline was May 15th, it is not flexible to go past May 15th because we have to honor the folks that are on the waiting list. And so when we are only offering you one school, you will never be on the waiting list for any other school. So if you get placed in the first round of the lottery or in the second round through a waitlist process, you will not be on the waiting list for any other school. You will have until the deadline to accept that placement or decline that placement. If you are in the system and you decline that placement, you will stay at the school that you are already at. If you are not in the system and you decline that placement, then you are more than welcome to come into the office after July 1 for open enrollment, where we will then place you at the school that is closest to your home that has an available seat.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Alder Steve Winter has questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a couple questions. Can you explain more about what falls into the priority ties you mentioned?
Yes, so the district uses just a few priorities or preferences that we put into play. So sibling preference is when an applicant or someone is applying to a school where they currently have a sibling attending, they would get priority to attend, as well as neighborhood priority. If they are applying to a school that is in their attendance zone, that is also a priority that would help them to be placed at that school.
And how many students benefit from priority ties? Or what percentage of students are benefiting from priority ties?
I wouldn't want to misspeak, but we can look into that and certainly get back to the committee. It would take some digging for us to look back at that, but we certainly could do it and would get that back to the committee if that's okay.
But I would like to add that all schools don't have the same priority. And so the benefit rate for priorities, it varies between a school and what kinds of priority a school has. And Steve, just to answer your question about priority ties. So what priority ties means, if we have 5 seats at a school and 6 kids who have priority, the tie is only the student who had the automated assigned number when we first ran the lottery. So every application gets assigned a random number. So if I'm 13 and you're 14 and we both have a priority to go to Davis and there's only 5 seats, 13 is gonna get in before 14. That's how we break the tie between the people who have the same weighted priority.
Right, so that's in the case where there are 2 people who have, when you say the same weighted priority, can you benefit from multiple priorities then if you are a sibling and you are applying to the neighborhood school? Okay, but through the chair, it would be, I think, really helpful to understand how many students benefit from priority ties. And it sounds like that data would be most interesting if we could see it by school.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Just for the record, if you guys can just state the mechanism in which we submit that information, that would be very helpful to make sure we get it to you in a timely manner.
Misty, is that something that could be sent to you and then forwarded to the committee?
Yes, that's correct. Michelle, I'll email you. Thank you.
Great.
And when you said 57% matching to one of their priorities, can you explain what that means? Is that one of their 6 priorities?
So one of their choices is what I said. So if an applicant put down 4 choices or 6 or 2, we were successfully able to match those applicants to one of their indicated choices on their application.
Okay, because some people may not use all 4 or 6.
That's correct.
How has that percentage changed over time? Has that gone up? Has it gone down? Has it stayed the same?
So this is my second lottery run. I came on with the district last January, just before the lottery ran. But I'm very proud to say that the placement rates have gone up over the years. We did look at that data. So I think, don't quote me wrong, I know it was at least a 14% gain from 2009, from 18 to 19. And we're pretty much about the same this year, but we did change the algorithm last year. So we saw a huge increase in our placement results, and we've kept steady with that. So that's why we said we're trending in the right direction and matching parents and families to schools that they're saying they do want to go to.
Are you able to say which schools are most oversubscribed? Like which schools are choices that that too many people would like to go to those schools?
Yes, I think we can definitely shed light onto that. There are those schools that historically a lot of families are interested in, and those would be Davis Street. Morrill Sheridan is also one where there's a lot of interest, as well as at the high school level, we look at New Haven Academy. Cooperative Arts is also another one. Those are four of the bigger ones. And we see a huge interest in our pre-K programs from the New Haven and suburban side. So the bulk of our applications truly do come in at pre-K. We see a lot in ninth grade with our kids transitioning from 8th to 9th, but we see most of our applicants at that pre-K level.
If I could just add, I think it's really important for this board and this committee of the Board of Alders to understand that in places where we have a huge oversubscription issue, it has to do with the size of the zone and what that school can actually accommodate. And so that is something that needs to be investigated and looked into from the city side of things in terms of redistricting and things like that, because some of the feedback that we get is that schools that are oversubscribed, where you don't have a priority, you will never get in. And that is absolutely true, because the zone that serves that one school is much larger than the amount of children that can be accommodated in that zone. And the only way we can solve for that is by moving lines. And so it is not a fault of the school choice system, but rather an issue that is in the city in certain zones. Ross Woodward happens to be a zone as well. Worthington Hooker is a zone that's larger than what the school in that neighborhood can actually maintain for its enrollment. And so as a result, it becomes very difficult for somebody who does not have a priority to get into that school. And then we have schools in the district that are magnet schools that don't have a zone at all. And so folks will often say, well, I live across the street from Jepson. I don't understand why I can't go to Jepson. And it's because it's not in a zone and there are no addresses assigned to it. And so that is where a lot of the frustration and confusion amongst parents comes from. It's that deep-rooted seated issue that we actually have no control over in terms of what addresses are assigned to certain schools in the district. And no algorithm will fix that.
And if I could also add on to that, what Michelle is saying, there are even some schools that are some neighborhoods that are assigned to a zone and families cannot even get their children in. Davis is one of those where we hear a lot of feedback to say, I live in the Davis zone, but I can't get my child in. So that goes back to that zoning issue. We were able to successfully place additional students from the zone, especially with Davis this year, by opening up more New Haven seats. But I think long-term, that is definitely a problem that we need to look at, the rezoning of these school lines.
I guess I'll let other folks, I'll defer to other folks. Thanks so much. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Steve Winter. We have Vice Chair Alder Daryl Brakeem who will ask a question.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you all for your attendance on this. I just want to give a little bit of context. I think I'm the longest serving alder here in this committee. So I've been around a while, and I recall being a part of the redistricting process with Alder Angela Russell. She was our representative to the Board of Education concerning redistricting. So Alder Winter, you were definitely onto something, but it's not new. It is new to the moment, but it's certainly not new to the situation. So so I will put a notice on that, that the Board of Education historically has been really good about ensuring that we've had a representative to that committee. So that, there's kudos to that. My question, I'm going to be very specific. In the month of April 2020, was there indeed an issue with the website, the registration website?
To my knowledge, there was no issue with the registration website. We did have some parents call in and say that they were having difficulty or the link wasn't working for them. And in every instance, it was working on our end. Every time we checked, we were able to access it. It is new going to an online system and getting webmasters to put things up. So every time a parent, we did get some calls where parents said, it's not working for me. We did go ahead and provide them with a link that they could access it. And we've been working very closely with parents, even today, to make sure that they're registered, and that hence why we did the online guides. But to my knowledge, the link has never been broken. It's been multi-layered as far as working with the vendor Power School to try to take us online, then working with our own webmaster in the district to try to publish that. Normally, we never do an online registration process, but to my knowledge, the link has never been broken. The website has never been down.
Yes, and I understand that this is a historic moment and online registration is wonderful. I'm glad to see it. But I am referring to an error message that personally I have received. I have personal buy-in now. I'm speaking to a subject where I'm personally invested, so I'm not making it up. That's one. Two, I have many constituents that receive the same message. And my ultimate question is, there's already issues in terms of the trust in the process, in the system. Believe me, I know it. I've been a part of building this process. So I feel like I own kind of it, a part of it, right? So I really want to know, what do you all have in place in terms of troubleshooting these errors and ensuring that constituents and community members don't feel like they are being gypped? I know that's not how I felt personally. As a matter of fact, the registration process was easy. It's the acceptance process that was the problem.
Oh.
So what are you all doing in terms of ensuring that the troubleshooting of the site, and if the site goes down, which, you know, it happens all the time. We've had technical difficulties tonight, right? Like, what are we doing to ensure that my constituents, and now I'm a parent in the public schools, ensure that we're not missing a beat? We don't need to be concerned. What do you have in place to ensure that troubleshooting is there and that constituency follow-up is efficient?
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. So I thought we were talking about the registration site, but you're talking about the acceptance site. Okay, so the
April, so I was very specific. April, the adjustment date was April 15th. I'm referring to the acceptance by that point. April 2020 is where people should have already responded, and they're trying to accept. There was, I guess, a second point of contact just to ensure, yes, I'm really showing up. I really want the seat.
Okay, so the process is two-pronged. So on April 14th, for example, if I'm accepted at Davis Street School, I then have until May 15th to log into the same parent portal that I did the application online, to click yes or no. And then after that, if I'm brand new, I need to register. So I think I'm still unclear if we're talking about the first part, the acceptance, or the registration. You think you're referring to the acceptance we're saying now, correct?
Registration.
Registration. So registration is the second part. So if they said, yes, I've accepted the seat, they had a timeline to register. Obviously, we want to be sensitive to parents. So we're still communicating with parents and trying to be responsive as possible. So schools, if I was accepted at a school of choice, the school has what's called a magnet resource teacher, most schools. So they were also calling and emailing the parent and letting them know to accept and to register. my staff is actually currently doing an audit now. We're going school by school and looking to see who was accepted and who has not registered yet. And we are personally calling and emailing those parents. And we've been doing so for the last couple of weeks to make sure that parents are registering to say, yes, I did accept my seat, but now I've registered. We've been emailing and communicating with parents accordingly. So that is our process. We're just trying to be responsive as possible.
Do you have enough staff to accommodate this type of response?
Do you want the honest answer? Probably not. So in my office, it is myself and I have 4 full-time staff. And we weren't prepared to work from home with the pandemic, but Dr. Tracy and the IT team and the executive team have been great about supporting us and getting everyone up to working remotely. So we've been adjusting to that, and we're just now trickling back into the office. I was there throughout this whole process. I was coming in. Obviously, I can't take all the calls, but I'm a very on the front lines kind of person. So I was taking calls and emailing even late at night, trying to communicate and make sure parents get their answer. But the short answer is no. I would say we probably don't have enough staff. For the size of district we serve, more than 21,000 students, I have a staff of 5.
So let's imagine COVID did not happen.
Mhm.
On a normal basis, is it your testimony that you don't have enough staff to even accommodate normal circumstances?
I wouldn't say that, because we get the job done. We do get the job done. This is just new. The transition going online is new for everyone, including my staff. So we've been having some trainings around it. But on a normal day, it depends. Sometimes we get a lot of people, usually right after the lottery. Everyone is there running in and wanting to accept and to register, and we handle it. So there are some heavy days, but we do a good job at handling it. So normally we get through it. So I don't know if I would say we can get through it, if that answers it.
It does, and I appreciate your honesty. The reason why I'm asking, and they're not setup questions, we are the fiduciary for the city. We administer the budget. So it's things like this when we experience these hiccups and so on, and it may be leading to the lack of staff, that they're not mentioned during budget time. So these are, we missed the window. We do have a next year, but the last time I believe I had leaders, we had another education meeting. I vividly said, we have to be clear about the need on the front end, in particular, this education committee. We see ourselves as partners. This committee, we are committed to ensuring the success of the Board of Education. We are not the Board of Education. We are overseeing the budget. So when we have these details, we can go to bat for those details. But if we don't know them, and I'm personally experiencing errors, and I'm like, well, I thought they said they were okay. And, then we come down months later and no, we're not, we're not okay, right? So I just want to implore everyone once again, I don't know what the process is through the Board of Education in terms of requests and so on. I realize what we had to do as a collective board. I am only one of 30, so I'm not speaking for the whole board. Let me be clear about that. And realize what we had to do in terms of the budget. But it's these details that matter, in particular around budgeting time. I do have additional questions, Madam Chair, but I'm gonna yield my time, let others ask, and then if we can come back, that'd be great.
Thank you, Vice Chair Peen. I want to also welcome Alder Renee Haywood, also Majority Leader Richard Furlow, also to the meeting. Welcome. I see Alder Sabine has a question. You have to unmute, Eli.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
My question is, you mentioned earlier that not all schools have the same preferences, and I was wondering if you could either talk about which schools those are, or through you, Madam Chair, we could get a list of which schools have which preferences.
So I'll follow up on that one, because that was my statement. So yes, on the school choice website, there is a listing of all of the schools. So it's choice.nhps.net, and it will show every school and what their priorities are. What I want to make clear is that the priorities that you can get if there's a priority in a school is neighborhood with sibling attending. And so as I spoke to the issues around zoning, all schools don't have the same priorities because not every school has a neighborhood zone. And so if you're applying to co-op, there is no neighborhood zone to that school, and therefore the only priority there is sibling. And so there's many more chances for somebody who doesn't live around co-op or anything else like that to get into that school than there would be in a place if that school also had a neighborhood zone. The same is true of Davis. Davis has a neighborhood zone and they have the sibling priority. So the chances of getting into that school without one of those priorities, because the zone is larger than what the school can accommodate, is very, very small. But if you take that and you apply that same concept to Barack Obama, which does not have a neighborhood zone and only sibling, there's a lot more chances for school choice to actually happen in those places.
Thank you. Another question, which is your presentation said that 7,200 students submitted school choice placement requests or applications. And I guess I was wondering what percentage of students either entering maybe 9th grade or entering preschool are submitting applications. Is there a significant number of students who could be applying for at like an important moment in their public school process, but are not submitting an application? Like how many students that is? And then,
Marquel, would you want me to start on that, or would you like to start?
I'll start. So we'd have to get the data back to you. We don't have that at this moment, but we're happy to look at that. I think the school choice process is always optional. So there are students, compulsory education begins at kindergarten. So there are some parents that will opt not to apply through the process, and those students are placed into a school based on availability after July 1. The same goes with students from going from 8th grade to 9th grade. It's optional. We do have the two larger comprehensive high schools, James Hills and Wilbur-Cross. So you will have those students who will say, I don't really want to go to one of the magnets. I'd prefer to go to my neighborhood high school. So we can look at the percentage of students in both those grades who apply and don't apply and get those back to you. Michelle?
In that, seeing that data, that would be great. Thank you.
But the one thing that I do want to add to that response is that we spend a significant amount of time doing kindergarten outreach, which we do consider our entry grade in New Haven. And so we are partnered with all of the Head Start school readiness sites in New Haven. We work very closely with the early childhood department to get the message out to the folks that are not already in our system. So if you attend Dr. Mayo, you are in our system. We have a mailing address for you. We have information for you. We do direct mailers, direct outreach. There's a lot of opportunity for parents to come in. We offer special nights where we do pre-reg right on site for them. And so I think that it's important to note that 8th to 9th grade is optional. We don't push that application in the same way that we do for kindergarten to make sure that everybody applies. And there is a full pre-registration process to make it as easy for parents as possible, that once they get in, they don't have to do anything else with us after the fact. So we dedicate a lot of time to that on the front end. And I think that that's important for the record for people to know. And of course, we're always open to feedback to improve those processes and our partnerships with other organizations in New Haven that could help us get that done.
And would there be any way to know which types of students, or some sort of either neighborhood or demographic data about students who are submitting applications at which moments? Because I think it would be interesting to see whether we're missing folks who could be applying and who are not.
We'll get that to you.
Certainly.
Madam President, may I speak?
Yes.
Chairperson. Okay, good evening, everyone. Let me say this, that the best place, as they said, for parents to get in is at our pre-K level. That's really the open grade, because the other grades depend on capacity. I may want my child in Davis neighborhood or zone, whatever that is. But if the school does not have the space, it doesn't matter if you live in Davis zone. It's a space issue. I cannot go over a teacher's contract, which at the lower level, maybe what, 26? 26. Some grade level would be 27. we cannot go over. Once we go over teachers' contractual numbers, we have to pay those teachers extra for every student that they may get in that grade, which is a good amount of money. We encountered that somewhat this year, where we had to pay the teachers extra in a couple of schools. So one thing Mark and Michelle are trying to do to make sure they're not over enrolling, because then that becomes problematic to us. So the magnet seats are just few, it's not a lot. Because once students get in, many of them would stay there, except for when they start pre-K, and a lot of suburban students may come in after pre-K and their all-day kindergarten is open, they're gone. So we're looking at that trend right now. How many of our students who come in are staying with us to continue throughout the grades, and how many are leaving? And I think they have the data on that. So I don't want the perception to be out there that there are a lot of seats and, you know, New Haven kids or suburban kids should get in. No, it's not, because people are staying put in many of their schools. And so very few seats, with the exception of pre-K, which is very open, very few seats once you start school. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions from the Education Committee? I yield back to Vice Chair Darryl Parkine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's very possible I missed this. So I was wondering, what was the total number of applications submitted?
So the unique count was approximately 7,200 individuals applied.
And how many of those students have been accepted into the system, or maybe they accepted their seat?
As of now, I don't have the number, but I could give that to you. That's easy to dig up in our system. The number, we can actually provide you with the number of students who said, yes, I'm going to accept that offer, the number of kids that said I was offered a seat and I'm not going to take it. So we can give that to you.
Okay.
But 57% of those applicants were placed in the first round. So 57%.
Oh, okay, that's helpful. Okay. Next question, it gets back to my contextual statement in the beginning about the school redistricting and the zones. When is that process up? Is it due to come up at some point?
It is not on the agenda at the moment and hasn't been flagged. And so we did a substantial amount of work on redistricting in 2012. I happened to be on the committee as well. And Althea Brooks happened to serve on that. Yep, so early on. We did a really deep dive into everything that has been happening around the city. We worked with the sociologists to get birth rates and so on to make a lot of projections. That work was proposed to the New Haven Board of Education, and it was not accepted. All the recommendations from that work were not accepted because there was a feeling that when we were trying to break the city down into 4 quadrants, there was not enough magnet options on the west side of town. Since then, we have transformed schools to be magnets. Roberto Clemente, which wasn't previously a magnet on that side of town, is now a magnet. So we have done some work that really needs to be looked at in a different way in the current climate of the city. And so I think that it has not been brought to the forefront of an agenda, but is certainly something that we would be interested in digging into if that were of appetite to this Board of Alders and the mayor and the superintendent, so on and so forth.
Certainly, I don't have influence to push that type of agenda. I will just state for my own self that after 9 years, we probably should revisit the conversation. My understanding was that those recommendations were very comprehensive, very outward thinking, and many of those recommendations are probably still very much relevant.
Yes.
So, you know, to whatever powers that might be on this Zoom, it's long overdue.
Mm-hmm.
So I, you know, through the chair, I'll just, that's my recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Alder Parkine. We'll send that to CMAZA if you can, please. One last question I have is, now with all this technology, I know we had a pandemic going on for the last round. Is there a way that the Board of Education could be live when they are doing this lottery process. So as a parent, you could turn on a computer or your laptop or in your phone, be able to see actually how this lottery process done that day, that they didn't have to wait for an email. We could just see it. We could see the shuffle.
I would probably say it's probably a lot less exciting than people would think. So we simply program a lot of stuff in and process. So even on our end, it's not like we don't see mystical numbers and kids being plates. That'd be great, but we don't. And it is pretty instantaneous. So once we process all of the records, we click to send out the emails, and the emails go out within the hour. So once within an hour of the live lottery, a parent is triggered an email to say I've been accepted or not. So it is semi-live, but we could look into that. But I don't know what benefit that would give at this point.
Just a little bit more transparency to the community to let them know that I feel like a lot of the community is like, does this lottery really occur? Is there really something, if we can't see it, we can't hear it, we don't know if it's going on. So just to be a little bit more transparent to the community, if they could actually watch it, see it, maybe they could understand it a little more.
And if I could just add, so historically, before we had a computerized algorithm system, the way that we do now, we did have the lottery day open to the public where you would come in and watch the director press a button, and 5 minutes later you can line up and get your results. And a decision was made to eliminate that, because experiencing that as a parent, or you can look on YouTube at old WTNH footage, to be in the room with hundreds of people waiting in line, getting the results, lots of parents felt that was a very overwhelming process, and people very much felt like winners and losers in the room, watching the reactions of others cheering. Well, then you got in line and you didn't get what you want. So for sensitivity, we made the decision as a school district, based on feedback that we had gotten from the public about people lined up in the room, packed in like sardines, lines down the hallways at the Board of Ed, that it actually didn't feel like a healthy process for them. And they much preferred this automatic response that they could either enjoy in private or sell it, or deal with in private. And so that is why we went away from that practice at the Board of Ed.
Thank you so much. Alder Steve Winter has another question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you just talk a little bit more about why the default is that students choose at the younger students choose, but that the 8th and 9th graders do not?
So I'll just clarify that. So it wasn't that it was the default, it's that our energy. Yeah. So when we, a few years ago, we had practiced trying to get all 8th graders in New Haven to apply to a school. And so the curriculum at the magnet high schools in New Haven is very much based on student interest and what students really are passionate about for their high school experience. And so what we were finding when we were asking all 8th graders to apply is that we were diluting the applicant pools, and students who were getting placed in those schools actually didn't have an interest, but felt pressure to apply from the guidance counselor as a compliance exercise rather than an exercise in, I'm really interested in the curriculum at New Haven Academy. I really want to be an artist, so co-op is my school. And we were finding that the rates for accepting those seats and then staying in that school for the duration were much lower. Folks were wanting to transfer out mid-year through 9th grade. And so we stepped back from the practice of trying to get all 8th graders to apply, and rather we do, Marquel can talk more specifically about engaging the guidance counselors at the schools, having opportunities for the principals to go in and give presentations. So we shifted our attention on everybody should apply, but rather everybody should get equal access to the information. And then we're not going to get involved in the individual actually submitting an application, but rather be more supportive in supplying information, and making sure that our efforts were on getting all kindergartners who live in New Haven to apply, because you can't enter the district fairly if we don't do our work there. And so that is why we backed off of that 8th to 9th grade transition in the way that we did.
On the neighborhood zones and the issue of trying to draw districts of the right size and shape, I mean, can we ever really have neighborhood zones that are fair or that feel fair? Like, does it feel like that's fundamentally a way that we should be having students select their schools?
Well, I think that is a philosophical question for to be answered by the leadership. But what I will say to you is that our districting patterns do not follow our development patterns in New Haven. And so we have a development boom happening downtown, but we do not have those kids that are going to be living in all that new development zoned to a school. And so what happens is we start putting pressures on certain sides of the town because we are not keeping up with where our development is happening and then matching appropriately for where seats are. And so this is why we have these disparities in school enrollments and things like that. And so if we really want to get at equity issues, then we have to start matching our behaviors to what is happening with housing and development and gentrification, all of those things that make us New Haven. We have to match those things.
And what would a process for matching those things look like?
So I would, again, defer to the leadership for the process, but certainly lots of community input, because this is a hot button topic.
So, Madam Chair, this would be, if I may?
Yes.
This would be a collaborative effort. It's not just going to come from district leadership, because it's like hot button issue and very political in nature also, I must say. What I think that we are focusing on in New Haven is to make every school a school that is desirous to the people in the community. Until we get there, we are always going to have these disparities and inequalities in our system. So we're working hard to make sure whether or not you're a magnet school or not, that you have a theme that you're operating by, a theme that parents would have interest in. And that's, if you check out all our schools, you'll see many of our schools, or almost all of them, are operating by a theme right now, whether it's, social services, whether it's, project-based learning, whatever it is. So that's where we're getting all our schools to make their schools marketable to the entire community. And as long as we can continue to get the magnet grant, this is going to be this competitive edge there. And at this point in where we are, we can't do without the magnet grant. Then we would not have the funds to bring things back to, say, neighborhood school per se. Make every school be a neighborhood school. I don't see that in the next couple of years that I'm still around, where that is ever going to happen that quickly. But again, we're working hard to make sure all our schools
Still there.
We lost you for a moment, Dr. Tracy.
Yeah, it's getting crazy. Zoom quit. What he told me, and then he brought me back in. That's interesting. So with the community at work, this magnet process and things that go on with magnet get a lot for parents really, really upset and very concerned, especially the ones who live just across the street from the school. And it's like I'm on the outside looking in. That's my school in my neighborhood and I can't even go there. Or I'm living in the neighborhood, Wexter Grant is across the street, but I don't want to go there. So we've set up a system of inequalities that is going to take a while to shift that, make it be for what all our community people would want. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. I see Vice Chair Alder Brackeen has another question.
Yes, I do, and actually, it's perfectly placed. I was wondering about visioning around the lottery system and just broadly. So I'm just, the lottery process is a process of chance. It's really not a choice. Can I just say that? So I know we've done a lot of work to get it closer to our choice, but have we thought as a district of what the next phase of this lottery system, what does it look like? I realize we've incorporated technology and algorithms and so on to try to bring some equity to it, but what does the district see this next 10 years essentially of the lottery system, and what does that look like for the district?
So if I may, I don't think I'm going to be around for 10 years anyhow, but but if I may, Madam Chair, with your permission.
Yes, Dr. Tracy.
Let me say, my staff is laughing. Let me say this. I am not seeing beyond all the way up to 10 years, but I'm saying currently now, we're not going to see much. I'm just going to be honest. We're not going to see much of a change. And as Elder Brakim says, the lottery is a lottery. It's a game of chance. I put in my name. I may get in, I may not get in. That's a game of chance. And even though we change it to choice and enrollment, we know that is still chance. And I put in my name, and you know, whether we're playing the lotto or we're playing, and my number may come up and my number may not come up. And that's just the bottom line. There's no control over that aspect of it. That's why it's called a lottery. We didn't like the name of lottery because it sounded like gambling in a sense. So some time ago it was changed to choice and enrollment to take away the gambling idea. But it's the same thing. I may get in, I may not get in. And I have a lot of parents emailing me, my child is this, my child needs this school, and I try not to interfere. Ma'am, there's a lottery process, and it's what it says. I cannot intervene. You know, I don't care if you are a Yale professor who comes from wherever to New Haven. We're not changing that, because those who have gotten in, they've gotten in through the lottery. If you didn't get your place, that's just what it is. And we're consistent with that this year to make sure that no one is gaming and believe that because they have a letter behind their names or whatever they think they are, they're going to come in and prevent our students from getting what they need to get. Bottom line, you didn't get in, you just didn't get in. That's it. So I don't have a 10-year plan, Alder Brakim.
But if I could just say that we developed a partnership that the superintendent has been extremely supportive of with a group of researchers out of Princeton University to try to focus our attention on not getting rid of the lottery, but making information more easily accessible. And so we piloted a simulator tool this year. It's going to be full-fledged next year if the board agrees to it, where parents will be able to get online, they'll be able to test their application to get a better sense of if they even have a chance at that school. And so, you know, the attention that Markwell and I focus our collaboration on is really about being as transparent and supportive to folks as possible and letting them know their chances in the game, if you will. And I think that is what all of our attention has been focused on, not getting rid of the lottery, but making it as user-friendly and easy for parents to navigate as possible. And it is a work in progress, and we acknowledge that we are not there yet, but there is a plan that we continue to try to develop and work with partners and evaluate our work in a way that I don't, you know, I want to give kudos to Markwell on that as the director. I've had the chance to work with my third director of choice now, and I would say that he is excellent at being reflective and evaluating the work of the office, and always has an open mind about improving. And so that is where the survey comes from and all of the tools that we're trying to implement to advance things for parents. And he and I are both new parents that will eventually have to do this as well. So
They will have no preference. Okay, that's funny. But Chair, Madam Chair, I must say publicly that these two young people who are products of New Haven and New Haven Public Schools, born and brought up here, they are awesome. They are awesome to work with. They take this work seriously, and I'm so proud of them.
it is our pleasure to serve you, Dr. Tracy, and the New Haven community. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, you are muted. Madam Chair, you are muted. I'll give it 30 seconds and then I'll take the reins. I see Al. There we
Thank
go.
you. Sorry for technical difficulties tonight. I see Alder Carmen Rodriguez has a question. Sorry for the wait.
No problem. Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's going to be a two-part question. I know that parents are very interested in getting into the schools that they have chosen. Yes, we knew that this was called a lottery previously. Now it's choice. And it is heart-wrenching to be in a room and know that your child did not get into the school that they wanted. And then they do call you all and tell you, this is the concerns I have for my child moving forward. I want to know, if I was that parent and I said to you, I know I did not get into the choice of my selections, but this is the issue that my child may be facing. How are you all addressing early on, whether it's kindergarten or they're coming in middle school? How are you helping me as a parent so that my child can be successful throughout the years that he will be in the New Haven school system so that he can succeed, he or she can succeed throughout their education? I know that parent engagement is very important. I had 3 sons that went through the school system, born and raised here in New Haven. I have to say that we did do, when my older son was entering middle school, we had open choice start as a pilot program. And I can say that my now 33-year-old son was one of the first 9 students that participated. I can tell you I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning because this was a learning curve for all of us. But hearing now that so many parents want to join the lottery, how can we make this better if they don't get into the school? And how can we make the schools and the learning just as acceptable like the magnet ones so that parents are not fearful? So they know they're getting the best of the best for their children. The other part of that is when people travel, and I want to know if there are spaces that are left open, or is it that you add more children to make it a bigger classroom? I can tell you that I work in a clinic where we have lots of children that come in once the school system has started, and a lot of children and I'm just going to say this quite honestly, I have a lot of children that come into the country December, January, February, that the parents are visiting scholars. And I am blown away by the amount of parents that can actually register their children into Hooker School. So they are visiting scholars. I've seen over a dozen parents that are able to get in that. So I'd like to know, are there spaces left open at all these schools if someone is going to move in? But more importantly, my first question, how do we help the parents that wanted that first decision, second or third, and they didn't get in? How do you guys help them calm their fears that they're going to go to good school and that their children are going to get a good education? And if that something is happening, how were you helping me as a parent work through these kinks so that my child can get just as good as education as someone who's in a magnet? Those are my questions.
If I can start, I'll take a stab at the question. So when parents call with concerns, a lot of times they want someone to listen to them. And that's something that I make and my staff make it a habit of doing, of listening first, whether it's an email or calling. You hear them out and you hear their concerns. And a lot of times parents will call and say, well, I got into my third choice, but I really wanted to go to this first choice. My child is special. And, you know, I let them know every child is special. This is a lottery and it's based on seat availability. I'm big on connecting parents. You said family engagement, connecting families to the resources they need. And then I'll tell my own personal story. It's particularly 8th grade to 9th grade. We see a lot of students who are placed at, I'll be honest, at Wilbercross or James Hill House High School. And I'll have parents come in directly to me and say, my child can't go to James Hill House. My child is not built for James Hill House. And I take that moment as a teachable moment to give them my story, where I'm a product of James Hill House High School. I did well, succeeded, went on to higher education. So you can't tell me that you can't learn there. You have to be focused. And I always offer to connect them directly to the principal, because a lot of times there are programs at schools or shining moments at certain schools that you don't know about. Because in the community of New Haven, we're going on hearsay and we hear that this is a good school. So we're going to take that at face value. So something I know that my office does is we connect them right to the principal. And we sell those shiny moments about the school. And I'll tell this not to be long-winded. I had a student last year graduating Betsy Ross and was placed at James Hill House, and mom came down at least 4 times and was very adamant at this is not the school for me. Probably talked to some of the assistant supers too, pleading to get out of that assignment. And I was so pleased, maybe around October, November, she came into the office and I see so many students and parents, I didn't recognize her. And she said, I just want to say thank you. And I'm like, well, what for? And she said, you told me to talk to the principal and give Hill House a try for my child. My child is not only getting straight A's, she's on the volleyball team and she loves it. So those are the moments that we love to hear about. So definitely connecting them to resources. And if there's a need that a parent says their child truly can't go there and there's a safety concern, we have avenues with Title IX coordinator to talk to them and fill out to make those concerns known. And there's always the avenue where we invite parents to process a transfer request, and they are allowed to tell us exactly why they want to transfer schools, and the assistant superintendents do an amazing job of evaluating those and talking to parents to figure out, is this really a need where a child needs to be changed from a school? Is there a safety concern here, or is the parent really just fearful of the school? So we piggyback off of each other, really trying to make the parents aware that their child's going to be okay. And there are people in school that will look out for them and make sure that their child is learning. The second point about, are we saving seats? I can assure you that under my term as director, we have not saved seats. So I have heard rumblings of that before. I cannot confirm or deny that because I don't know if it's true, but I will say under my time, we certainly do not. And the wait lists are good through October 1st. So yes, there is a possibility that a visiting scholar may move into the Hooker neighborhood. I'm using that as an example, and let's say November, when we're no longer considering the wait list. And if they are truly zoned for that school, live down the street, and that's their zone, we try to place the child as close to home as possible. But again, we are not saving seats at schools for special circumstances.
And I appreciate you clarifying that. And another thing that I am going to say is I echo your sentiments on Wilbur Cross and Hill High School. Because when I was making certain choices, I know that someone said to me, "Are you kidding?" But I can tell you, I have a lot of graduates from Wilbur Cross High School that chose to go on to college or chose to get a different profession. So again, I may not be born and raised in New Haven, my children are, but I definitely know that when I speak to parents and they say, "Did you hear something about this school or that school?" I would not be one because to say, "Oh, don't go there or go here," because everyone's, as my father would say, you get to school and that teacher teaching, if you don't listen, that teacher's gonna go home with a day paid. And if you don't sit in that classroom and hear what they have to say, bad on you. I know that the world has changed. Teachers have a lot to contend with, but there are students that want to come in and learn. You all know that. And so definitely no, not saying that there's anything concerning with any of our high schools. I think we as New Haven residents, we have to speak up on our schools because it's a great thing. I live down the end from Sound School, and to see how many children travel here out of district, I'm so happy with that. To see how many people travel into career that are out of district, that says something. When I did the Project Choice, one of the women that worked there, she said, "I wanted my children in New Haven schools and yours went out of district." And we wanted to try something different, and that was great. So I hear what you're saying, and absolutely, Wilbur Cross has had many amazing graduates. So has Hill House and all the other schools. And I think that we need to applaud our New Haven school system and continue to work so that we are on the map. We're just gonna keep rising and bringing the graduation level up. And that takes a force. And that takes all of us, parents and city residents. So I appreciate you clarifying that for me. I will reach out to you though, once I start seeing if I get like an uptake of number of parents. And you're right, they are living on Prospect Street. So it may be that, and I just wanted to be assured that everyone is included. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
May I say this, that even sitting among us this evening is another Hill House graduate, Ms. Keisha Hannons, who is one of the assistant superintendents. So our schools produce great people who come back to work with us. And I think you have to experience it to know it. But when I was director, I have had parents who were adamant about not attending Hill House High School. I had one year when Cross was over-enrolled, more than 1,600 students, and I had to make a decision to take off the last set that were enrolled and place them at Hill House. And I don't know, I would call it, people were angry at me for making that change. And many of them were from Fairhaven and other regions, and I could understand the outrage, but we had to place them. And when I talked to some parents and I brought them myself to Hill House, they fell in love with Hill House, and their students did very well and you know, end up going to college. And so perception is a thing. People are perceiving that some of our schools are not very good. And it's a matter of people telling people, "Oh, you don't want to go to that school." But you have to experience it to know it. And so Markwell and others and the assistant superintendents are doing a good job on educating parents about the various schools that we have and what they do have to offer. So thank you for saying that, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Dr.
for
Tracy.
the work you guys do. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I also want to recognize that Alder Smith and Alder Edwards has joined this meeting. Do you have any questions? Oh, I see Alder Crespo, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't have a question, I have more of a comment. Let me know if you can't hear me. I have my earpods. So I have to share with same sentiments as Alder Rodriguez. I am a Wilbur Cross graduate as well. I went to Overcross, and I have to tell you that I was the class president. I was the track team, cross country captain. I was able to be in Los Amigos program. I did a lot of work. And as a matter of fact, it was the best high school that I went to. It was the only high school that I went to, but it was the best 4 years of my life. And because of people like Larry Conaway that assisted me through the process, that sat with me and helped me get scholarships like Gear Up. And because of his guidance as well, and of course, people that were able to step up to the plate and give me some guidance, I was able to go to college. I was able to study, and I have to say that the perception is certainly key, but we certainly want to promote that our schools are one of the best. I started here when I came from Puerto Rico in 1994, and I went to Will Chanix, then I went to Vincent Morrow, then I went over to Christopher Columbus Academy, then for Haven Middle, and then Wilbur Cross. And I have to say that the New Haven, I am a product of the New Haven Public Schools, and I am a better man for it. So I would not have it any other way. I love my community, and the people that are stepping up. You know, I have close friends of mine that have been teaching, that went to Wilbur-Cross for 4 years, graduated, went to college, and now are teachers within the New Haven Public Schools, and they're actually teachers at Hill House, and they love Hill House. And of course, we all know Hill House against Cross every single time, or against Hill Regional Career, but Cross Pride all day, and go Governors. But I have to say, we can come together, you know, people from Cross, from Hill House, from Career, and come together. This is what we need, not only because it's something that we are all products of the same institution or program, but especially during these times, we have to come together. And I have to say that our schools are phenomenal, and the job that you guys are doing, kudos, especially during this pandemic, because I had to sit with my nephew countless hours. You know, one day alone was probably 5 to 8 hours just to do assignments. So I certainly can say that we definitely are on the right path, and certainly share the sentiments of my older Rodriguez. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.
Thank you so much. Any further questions from the Education Committee? Any questions from your team, Dr. Tracy, or comments?
Just that, Jose, I'm with you. Go Governors. I'm the only cross amongst the hill.
Oh, stop it. Oh, stop it.
Governors all day.
I would just
Governors all day.
add, as the assistant soup who currently has the high schools, yes, all of our high schools are great. And as Marquel said, I've had those long conversations with parents, taking them to Hill House, had the long conversations about the school and the benefits. And just as Dr. Craig said, continue to build the changing of perceptions. Our schools are great. We have lots to be proud of. We just graduated over 1,300 students from our high schools. So we are doing the job for our high schools, are doing the jobs, and we'll continue to build that. And just want to continue getting that message out there. You're not making a bad choice in any of our high schools.
And Madam Chair, may I speak?
Yes, Superintendent.
I just want to say that having worked in New Haven for almost 40 years, I would not change it for anything else. I didn't want to go anyplace else. And it's not because now I'm superintendent, but I didn't go anywhere because I love New Haven. And I've worked in New Haven for so many years, from daycare all the way up. And when I took over the middle school and merged the middle and the elementary school, that was Jackie Robinson Middle and Martin Luther King Elementary, and merged it into King Robinson. And we transformed that whole thing. Ms. Hannons was there with us, and no one wanted to go. It was hard to even sell our school in the magnet lottery. People were bypassing us when we set up our booth. I heard one parent say, I don't even want my cat to go to that school. Where? Jackie Robinson. We have to change perception. We worked hard in changing that perception to the point where we had long waiting lists wanting to come to our school. So again, I go back to, it's a matter of perception. And all of us in the community have to work on changing the perception about our school that some people still hold on to. All our schools are working hard and trying to make sure that learning is taking place. Can we be better? Yes, we can be. We all can be better. The system can be better. My mission is to make sure that New Haven Public Schools is a premier urban center in this, not only in the state, but the country, where people are going to come to want to learn from us about what we do. They can learn about our magnet process. They can learn about our magnet schools. They can learn about all our neighborhood schools and what they have to offer. We already have people coming to New Haven to ask questions about what it is we're doing. And so we're on the right trajectory, and we're going to continue doing that and make sure I don't want to say sell our school, but to share the great things that we're doing in New Haven Public Schools. We have to do more sharing and of what it is we're doing. So it's communication. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Tracy. Thank you everyone tonight for participating in this very informative meeting. Your presentation was very informative to me and to my committee. If there's any other further questions, we will let you know on this matter. I want to thank the leadership tonight, Superintendent Dr. Tracy, Dr. White, Dr. Keisha Hannans, Mr. Middleton, Miss Michelle Bonanno. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. And answering all our questions. And this very difficult time of the pandemic with our virtual meetings can be very difficult at times. So thank you for your patience with my screen not working and my mute button not working and all the technical difficulties we've had. But thank you again. It was very informative. And I appreciate all the hard work you're doing during this pandemic, how you're helping all our students, our families in so many areas, that we are keeping everybody united during this difficult time. Thank you again. We're gonna close the public portion of this meeting. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
So moved.
So if I may, I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Yeah, just so that we can have discussion.
Thank you.
Do we want to announce before we close the public portion to allow people to speak on this, or no? Do we need to?
I was informed that there's nobody waiting to add any questions from the public. There's no testimony.
Beautiful.
It's a workshop. But and any information that the Board of Ed team is to send to Misty Meza, please. Elections earlier from Alder Center and Albrecht King, correct?
Madam Chair, I can't really hear. There's like noise in the background. I'm not.
Alder Sabin had a question for the Board of Ed as well.
Okay, thank you. So questions from Alder Eli, Alder Steve Winter, Alder Brackeen, through to Misty Meza, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anything else I'd like to be discussed?
I call the question, Madam Chair.
Yes. Go ahead, Alder Crespo. Oh, I'm sorry, I hear you. You like to close the
I just want to call
meeting.
the question. Yeah.
Just the point of order. I think you meant you'd like to adjourn.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I appreciate it.
Are you switching your motion?
No. I'm just, there was a motion on the table, was seconded. I just wanted to. I yield to you, Madam Chair.
I'll take it as substitute motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you again, the team. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have a